Let's go. Let's start.
Let's start. Okay, let's get going then, everyone. Welcome to this session. Create next gen experiences at scale with Microsoft 365. I hope you've all had an excellent day at Build today. We've heard so much good things, and now we're going to get into another great session this afternoon. Welcome to everyone online as well. It's great that you could be here with us. So, as we get started, we're going to go through the hosts, we're going to go through the experts, and we're going to explain a little bit about this session. My name is Chris Hord. I'm Partner Education Lead for Vusion here in the UK. And with me, first of all, we'll start with Vesku.
All right. Thank you, Chris. My name is Vesa Nopanen, but of course, please call me Vesku. Coming from Finland, Sulava, I'm a principal consultant for Metaverse and Future Work. So app development Q&A is just like spitting the being there. But hey, we also have Sharon, who's one of our hosts online.
Hello, hi, I'm Sharon Sumner, Business Applications MVP and CEO for Business Cloud Integration. Lovely to see you all.
So we're going to be your host today, and with us we have got three very special experts who are specialised in this area of development and Microsoft 365. So if we can start out with Gary. Gary, welcome.
Thank you very much for the welcome. So my name is Gary Trinder. I'm a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft, and I specialise in Microsoft 365 area. The cloud is quite big these days. So yeah.
Thanks ever so much, Gary. Gary, now we're going to move on to Tom Morgan. Tom, we know very well from the Microsoft Teams community. Tom, thanks for being with us.
Hello, excited to be here. Sorry I couldn't be standing next to you, but that's the way it is. Yeah, my name's Tom. I'm all about Microsoft Teams platform development. I'm a Microsoft MVP. That's what I kind of blog and do videos about, building things on top of Microsoft Teams and kind of related tech like Graph and Bot Framework and cognitive services and all that stuff. So yeah, hello.
Thanks ever so much, Tom. And we also have Luz Carter, who we've just received word that she's going to be coming in hot from another session and will be coming online within the next few minutes. So a mix. We're in hybrid mode. We've got people in the room, we've got people online, and we'll be asking questions from both audiences today. So before we get started in with this Ask the Expert session, we just want to have a little bit of a recap of news that we've heard about Microsoft 365. And we've all looked at the sessions, the Interfocus session about the metaverse, the session about collaborative apps and others. And we just wanted to pull out some things that we think that you should be aware of kind of after build. And we hope you go back and look at the sessions. So we heard from Jeff Teeper and Charles Lamanna in terms of Microsoft Teams, 270 million monthly active users. I mean, that's an incredible amount. And I think if you're a developer, it's a really exciting time at the scale of that audience. If you're developing these apps, you've got to think of that market of 270 million. Now, Vesku, myself, and Sharon, we wanted to identify three areas that we think that are opportunities for developers here. So first of all, we want to think about surfaces and where those apps can be surfaced. So some of the announcements we've heard at Microsoft Build include Teams.js 2.0 SDK for Outlook and Office.com, Loop, and also live share with Microsoft Teams as well. We're going to start out by asking Gary just a quick his thoughts about the Teams SDK, because his session today, I'd advise you catch up on it. It goes into this.
Yeah, thanks. So yeah, well, actually at Build, so the Teams JavaScript SDK version 2 became generally available. So it's been in preview for a little bit of a while, but now you can actually use this to build your production apps. And really what this enables you as a developer to do is to hook into the context of applications that you can run across Microsoft 365. So whereas we've previously talked about apps just running in Teams, now we're talking about taking those applications and extending them to different areas so we can bring apps to where people are working, rather than saying you have to come into Teams to view this app. People might spend their time in Outlook, they might spend their time in Office.com, or even we're switching through different applications on a continual basis. Is that it's nice to have that application just available at our fingertips to just kind of access. And also, again, using this SDK, start to do more things that we've probably not been able to do in the past. So, you know, we might want to show something in an application that's running in Outlook, but we might want to not want to do that in Teams, or we might not want to do that in Office.com. We can be really selective. We can change up our app so it looks more relevant. So, you know, I'm really interested to see how developers out there are going to use this new technology to build these new types of applications.
Thanks ever so much, Gary. And Loop, moving to Microsoft Loop. Vesa, what do you think about that?
Yeah. Thank you for asking, Chris, because I think Microsoft Loop combined with this, or Loop-powered adaptive cards, as they are giving a huge number of new opportunities for developers to create those applications that can surface anywhere, or basically inside Teams or inside Outlook in the beginning. And you don't have to go through the installation process, but you get into the context immediately there. And that's a really big opportunity to start bringing your legacy or custom applications directly to the flow of work. And that's a huge thing when you think about the usage. And of course, live share. When we are in the meetings, we have used whiteboard, so we know how the live share instance works. We are working together at the same application, and we can bring that power to our own applications and start sharing them directly to the meeting. And that's a huge one.
And just before we kind of move on, so thank you ever so much, Vesa. We're going to talk, a little bit about live share, and I think, a good one to answer this one, Tom. I mean, being in Teams and seeing kind of live share come to fruition, what do you think about that? What's your kind of initial thoughts?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting actually. Like, I think the biggest thing is how relatively simple it looks like it's going to be, from just kind of being built to SDKs. That way means that I think if you're a developer, you don't have to like really spend loads and loads of time understanding how like the stuff syncs up in the background, or like how to kind of do all this stuff. There's a lot of abstraction, which I think if you're a business apps developer, if you're working in an organization somewhere, you haven't got time to go and take 3 months off to understand exactly how like Fluid Framework works and all the rest of it. What you can do though, like, and that's a lot of the reason that these business apps don't have some of these really cool features in that would actually genuinely be really useful. But I think in this way, because it's abstracted through the SDK, it actually makes it much easier to kind of add these into existing applications. So I'm kind of excited to see that, and excited to kind of go back to some of these customers and saying, look, you could easily do this now. Like, wouldn't that light up, this scenario or that scenario for productivity? So it's exciting.
That's absolutely perfect. So thanks ever so much for that, Tom. And before we move on, Sharon, got a quick question for you. I mean, you're someone who works with the Power Platform so much. I mean, you're well known here in the UK for being a great advocate and also a great lead on that. With all of these announcements about surfacing in different places, I mean, this is something that's quite natural to you, right? Being in Power Platform and seeing them integrated within Microsoft 365.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's fantastic to bring these tools to the surface. I mean, a lot of people think that these things should have been there from the get-go, but we need the audience, right? 270 million monthly active users. We know where you are now. So we're going to bring the tools to you. And I think Microsoft's doing a great job of rolling all of this out. And it's got to be done thoughtfully, especially with developers. You're a hard bunch to please. But from what I've seen, this is going to go down really well.
That's awesome. Thank you ever so much, Sharon. So in addition to seeing these surfaces and apps going into services, we're also seeing the new tools through Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, in addition to low code, but also as well for developers, there's this opportunity of building new worlds through Mesh for Microsoft Teams. And hopefully we'll see lots of questions from you in the next 20 minutes. So just some house rules. This is a question and answer session. And it's focused on you now, the audience, from this point. It's your opportunity to ask the experts as many questions as you can in these areas. We're going to have a warm-up question. Questions will be answered in the studio and on chat, so we want to have both audiences. We want to try and keep answers to kind of 30 seconds to a minute so everyone gets the opportunity. And this isn't a roadmap session or a table talk, so it's just pure Q&A from us. So let's get going. Let's get into the warm-up question. What announcement for Microsoft 365 has captured your imagination at Build this year? Okay, I think we're going to start. Tom, let's start with you. What do you think?
I think actually for me, the it kind of went under the radar a little bit, but there's a new capability in Azure Communication Services now to deliver email, which kind of by itself is like fine, but actually, if you kind of zoom out a little bit, it's making Azure Communication Services like a real compete in that space for like developers wanting to like get communications done across a variety of different places like SMS or voice over IP, and now email as well, making it super simple, part of the Microsoft stack, not a third party. For big companies, that's a really big deal. Like it's inside the Microsoft bubble. You haven't got to go and get another service through legal. Actually, that's going to light up a lot of stuff. So actually, for me, that was like a good, didn't see that coming, nice announcement. Yeah.
That's perfect. Thanks, Tom. Vesku, how about you?
Well, I think on the announcement side, I'm most excited about the Microsoft Loop because it's really bringing those applications there. I already talked about Loop, why it's a kind of big thing, but that's one of those things among the live share that I'm really excited.
Thanks, Vesku. Gary, how about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for Teams Toolkit. You mentioned it in the first slide, actually, and I think I'm excited for this because the Toolkit's been in preview for quite a while. It's gone through a lot of iterations. We know that in the past, Teams development has been quite fractured. There's different elements that you need to consider in your app, so bots, tabs, and it can get quite confusing. Teams Toolkit really provides you that entry point in to kind of dip your toe in, if you like, for Teams app development and now obviously app development across 365 and going into Outlook and Office.com as well. So I'm really excited that that's now out and people can use it, and we're hopefully going to start to see more compelling applications that are going to be built on this platform, just across the board, because the barrier to entry, if you like, to have to know all these different things, the toolkit abstracts all those things away. A bit like Tom was saying, about SDKs being easy to use. You can just use it. You don't have to understand all of the plumbing behind the scenes. You just want it to work, so we can focus on adding that value. And for me, that's been a key announcement this year.
That's perfect. And before we move in to start taking kind of questions, because we'll intersperse these warm-up questions, Sharon, how about you? How about, is there one thing that you could kind of highlight for the audience today that you think has gone down really well?
I think it's always really nice to see the expansion of the graph, and so any graph API that comes, forward at these conferences is really, really nice. So I'm liking the look of this approval stuff. Going to go and dig into that afterwards. I think that's going to be really hot.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Sharon. And Sharon, as you know, for the moderators online, are we starting to see any questions kind of come into the Teams chat at this point? Are there any other jumping out at you?
No, we're all a little bit shy. We haven't got any comments so far. So please do put your questions here. These
Hey,
guys
look,
need talent.
we've got one from the audience already. We've got Kevin McDonald, and this time we've got a mic for the questions, so we can go over to him, I think.
Okay.
Thank you very much. This might be for Gary. I'm just wondering, because I saw your section early on the Teams Toolkit, which I really like the look of. But I know Yo Teams has been around for a while. Do you? And I think it's absolutely a position for both. But do you think for developers, there's a reason why they go for one over the other at all?
Yeah, it's a great question. As I mentioned, Teams app development, there's lots of different ways to start building your app, and Yo Teams is, yes, a fantastic way to get started. I think it's good to have that choice. So Yo Teams is obviously it's more focused on I guess more of a, you've got the framework and you control everything, as opposed to Toolkit, which is, here we've taken a lot of that pain away from you and abstracted that away. So, if you're an ISV potentially, then you might be looking at Yo Teams. If you want that, I want to get started and I want to click around and have a nice wizard to get started on your app journey, then Toolkit's going to be for you. I think, yeah, there's a bit of a learning curve, definitely, when you're going into Yo Teams. There's a lot of scary things out there if you've kind of never been using some of the tools or skills that you need to develop these new style applications. So yeah, I think there's definitely room for both of them. It's not one or the other. I think it all depends on which part of that development journey you're in.
Thanks ever so much for your question, Kev. And anyone, before we move on to the next question here, has anyone else got any more questions that they would like to ask the experts? Remember, this time is for you, with Gary, with Tom, with Luce, Sharon, and Vesku. Any further questions in the room at all? Yes, please. We'll have to come to you with the mic.
It's all right, I need to get fit.
There we go. I think Gary's going to be busy today.
I should have met you halfway.
What's your question?
The idea of bringing an app into the place where someone's already working to keep the flow going, that sounds compelling, but I'm struggling to picture it. So have you got an example of seeing this working and really helping people remain productive? Oh, it is a question for you. I'm sorry.
So I think Gary's going to come back and get a mic because he's going to kind of answer this one too. Thank you, Gary.
So I guess the first question which I'd ask back to you is, did you see my session earlier? No, you didn't. In that session, you would have seen an example. It was a sample application, but it's a normal line of business application, maybe like an ordering system that you can dive into, but not have to, kind of jump around. So as you're looking for files, for example, in office.com, and you just want, I just want to quickly check that order, you can just access that app quickly within the context of where you work. So, Jack, who was my co-host at the time, he was, showing the picture of what we go through on a daily basis, right? We might start in Teams and we look at all our chat messages, then we look at Outlook, and these other line of business applications that are important to our business maybe are kind of pushed back because we've got to do email, we've got to do chats. So having it accessible and at your fingertips will then maybe look at, well, actually, what can we do when we're viewing this application in Teams? Can we show something different that's more contextual to, again, having a conversation with a colleague about one of those orders? One of the examples that I showed in the demo was, let's say you're in Teams and you're viewing your line of business application. Wouldn't it be great to just instantly start a conversation with people who are related to a particular order just by clicking a button? That's what surfacing your app in Teams is going to enable you to do, but the SDK comes into that because the SDK is the technology that's allowing you to, one, understand where your app is running, and two, to hook into the capabilities of these applications. So for the chat capability, for example, you can use that because you're in Teams, and you, as a developer, again, it's a simple API that you don't have to worry about. Okay, how do I do this when it's running in Teams on desktop, or whether I'm running Teams in the web? It just works. So I can definitely share some resources with you. The sample is actually available publicly as well, and I'm sure the session will be available online afterwards. So I definitely say, not to blow my own trumpet, but check my session out.
Thanks ever so much, Gary. Tom, Sharon, have you got anything kind of to kind of build upon that? What's your kind of perspective on this?
Tom, I'm going to let you answer that one, but we do have a question afterwards for you.
Okay. After Tom, we'll surface that other question online.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have too much to add actually to what Gary said, like, to be honest. So I might just jump into the question.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
I might bet use of time. So Simon's asked a bit more about the Microsoft Teams Graph APIs and sort of changes there. So that there's a few, because we've just talked about one, which is the Approvals API, which is sort of completely new. There isn't, as far as I'm aware, an API right now for doing approvals. So that is kind of on a whole new stack of things that's coming. There is also some low code stuff around Graph. I know it's not API, but bear with me for a second, that allows and kind of gives, allows you to kind of, or will allow you to bring Teams-like functionality into your Power Apps. That sounds intriguing and exciting. What's interesting though is, like, what about pro developers in that space? And I think from reading the announcements, and I haven't been to all of the sessions, I have slept and I have a family. So feel somebody can shout me down and say, actually, you're wrong. What I want to go and check on is whether or not there's any new APIs into the beta namespace this time around. I'm not sure that there are, and I think what the reading the news announcement stuff, what they're saying is actually that has come over the past couple of months, and there has been a real ramping up of new API capabilities into the beta endpoint. And now all of that stuff is there. So if you want to pull information about channel chats or like the contents of a team or like anything and put it in your own application, you can do all that now just by making those graph API calls, because of the investment that's come in the past previous kind of set of months. So anyone wanting to do that, I would definitely say go check out the beta namespace. Just be aware it is beta, it's not really production ready, but it is a really good place to go to understand what is coming, because that stuff will come to V1, and you can start building on it today in test and kind of get going with it, and then hopefully you'll be ready about the same time as they are.
That's perfect. Thank you ever so much, Tom. Really appreciate that. Have we got anything else in the online chat at this moment in time? Anything else new?
Yeah, we've also got a question from David asking about whether or not we're going to be able to track meeting responses to indicate whether we're going to be attending physically or virtually. Is that something that's around? It's probably something that Vesku knows more about.
Gary, Vesku, anyone want to take this one?
But I think on the meeting side, that I haven't seen that functionality on the Outlook yet. So definitely we won't be able to track it yet, but will it be at the Graph API calls? And Tom, I know you have been playing with those Graph APIs a lot more, and thinking about the meeting there, you can get a lot of information from the meeting through those APIs. But can you get, when do they surface that response there? That's going to be interesting to see on the Outlook, basically on the meeting APIs.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm not aware of anything either. I know after, like, you can get the attendance of a meeting after the fact, but I know that's not quite what you're asking. No, I haven't. You've got to think I don't know anything, but you've got to think like that's an obvious thing that the team must be working on. I can imagine though that it's quite complicated, because even though it's quite a simple thing, actually what you're changing is Outlook as well as Teams. So you've got to sync those things up. It's not just like a quick fix to a Teams meeting. Actually, it's got to work in Outlook. It's got to work in all the places Outlook works. So it's probably quite a it's a change to quite a fundamental construct in the whole substrate of an appointment. An appointment as an object has been around 30 years, maybe. Like, there's a lot of stuff that uses it. So I imagine they make changes to that stuff lightly. So yeah.
And it might also be worth checking out on feedbackportal.microsoft.com to see, because there is other people that tend to think about these things, and it could be somewhere where you can vote it up and your responses are directly reviewed by Microsoft engineering on the feedback portal. So just whilst we're here, any further kind of questions from the audience at all? Have any of you, at the conference, anything you've seen from the sessions as regarding Microsoft 365 that might be top of mind for you? All right, then in that case, what we'll do is we'll move on to another warm-up question. And we covered about surfacing apps within Outlook. Let's move on to the next one. Will a Teams app store be more friendly to developers moving forwards? So if you're in the process of creating those apps and bringing them to market. Tom, let's start out with you, I think, and then, we can also take Sharon's perspective on it as well. What do you think about this? Do you think it's got more friendly for developers?
Yeah, 100%. And the biggest thing that has made it more friendly is that you can now charge money. And so if you're an indie developer deciding where to put your efforts, I would say the one where you can make some money and also has 270 million eyeballs every month, that's a good choice, isn't it? So yes, and it's easy as well. It's not like you've got to write a whole load of like transactioning stuff. You can use the Microsoft, the name escapes me, but like Microsoft have a process in place already for transacting and selling, and a concept of subscriptions. You can set it all up in the portal. You don't have to be a credit card provider. Like, you don't have to do any of that stuff. They'll handle all of that for you. You just get some things to put in the SDK, and now your app can be free, and you can click a button, or your user can click a button, and then you get a nice thing to go from free to paid, or from paid to like premium, or whatever you want to do. Monthly subscription, yearly subscription, trials, you name it, it's all built in. And so as a developer, all that stuff is now super easy. And yeah, and you don't have to do it like that. You can bring your own license. It's just like that. The easiest way is that Microsoft route where Microsoft handle it all for you. So if you're thinking about building something, if you're an indie developer or anything like that, then absolutely that's worth doing. Just also, I know a lot of people listening will be like, yeah, but I'm in part of a big organization. I don't want my users like expensing a whole load of stuff they've managed to buy on their personal credit cards. There's a lot of like IT admin oversight and support for handling all that sort of stuff. You can prevent users from doing it. You can allocate, like buy a bulk load of licenses and allocate that to users. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do. So there is good IT governance tooling in there as well. So not one to fear, but yeah, as an indie developer, I think it's pretty exciting.
No, thank you ever so much for that, Tom. And just before we move over to Gary, Sharon, is there anything you want to kind of follow up on that? You know, being so kind of an app builder like yourself?
Yeah, and I mean, I think, look, nobody wants to be in that space where we are, albeit that you get paid, where we've got the same request from every client. Everybody wants to, you know, do a bit of due diligence and see if there's a solution already out there. So the ability to buy something that a developer's already put in there from a business benefit perspective and from getting to value faster, it's just going to help everybody. So it's good for the developers, it's good for the customers, honestly.
Thank you ever so much.
Before moving to Gary, I think you had a question. So Gary, can you take a mic? Yeah.
Thank you, Gary. I was very helpful today, Gary.
Yeah.
So yes, we're in our 15th year. In fact, it's our birthday a few days ago. And
Congratulations. Thank you ever so much.
we've for quite a long time now, we've been building SharePoint framework web parts for Microsoft SharePoint, and of course a few years ago we were able to sync those to Teams and so on. And one of the questions that we're constantly asked by our customers is, how can I not find the Teams web parts, the Teams tabs apps in Microsoft Teams in the gallery? So of course they need to sync those to Teams, and I think there was noise that was going to be addressed at some point, but I've not heard anything more on that. And of course, you know, the benefit of the SharePoint framework is not developing the solution twice. So is there any story in the future for that to be addressed?
I think Gary's already got a pre-canned response for him.
Yeah, I'd love to have an answer for you, but unfortunately, I don't. That's not to say that there isn't an answer, but I definitely understand the pain point as well. Yeah, obviously, you know, we mentioned already, and I kind of said at the beginning about app development, maybe a little bit fractured. You got different options, and it's understanding what your options are and taking the best decision for the context that you're working in. SharePoint framework is obviously a great way of building apps, having it self-hosted in SharePoint, so you don't need to use, you know, services from Azure. And yeah, because you have that sync involved, some things, you know, can get a little bit out of sync, unaligned. But yeah, I don't know of anything, unfortunately, but that is definitely something which I can take on for you, and I can find out some information. So all I can say is I don't have an answer, but leave it with me.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you ever so much. Thanks, guys. We've got a couple of minutes left, and before we get onto the resources, we just want to squeeze in, I think, the last couple of questions that we have in here. So we have a question here from Simon. What are your thoughts on Power Pages? I see Sharon nodding her head, so I think she wants to take that one.
Not specifically, and I think that's one that we all can have you on, right? So I kind of wanted that one asked because I think that again has it moved? Is it different? Is it just renamed? I'd love to hear how the developers feel about that one from what they've heard so far. Not being a developer myself. Tom, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I saw that announcement and my first thought was like, I didn't even know this thing existed before, you know, like literally just didn't even know it was a thing because I haven't come from the SharePoint side, right? So that it's completely passed me by, which is like an interesting, I mean, like the Microsoft stack is so huge, right? And like it's surprising that you just don't see any stuff. I think it's cool, like I think it's good. It feels an interesting space where, like, I'm a developer, so if I quickly want to spin up a web page, I'll jump to Azure and I'll do it that way, and it's nice and easy to do. But I appreciate that, like a non-developer, what do you do there? Because there's not very many easy routes there apart from going. And again, this is also kind of in a way Microsoft sort of filling the gap in where otherwise you might go to like a Squarespace or a Wix or someone like that. Yeah, can you solve it inside the Microsoft bubble? Why not? Yeah.
Thank you ever so much, Tom. We've got one final kind of question. We've got a couple of questions here at the end. Unfortunately, we're at time. You know, we are right there. But we get to hang around afterwards. So you can come up to the desk and we can chat them out in person. So we absolutely look forward to that. Here are some resources in order to be able to help you and follow up on. There is, of course, the Microsoft Build book of news, which will cover all of the announcements for Microsoft Build. We've then got Microsoft Docs if you want to kind of drill in all the devil, you know, the details and the, you know, right there on Microsoft Docs. And as well, we've got some other resources that we can recommend as well. Microsoft Learn is, I'm sure there'll be modules appearing on Microsoft Learn too, but also AMAs, the Microsoft Tech Community. Please feel free to follow up on those forums because that's where the all the MVPs hang out and try to prove that they're the best and answer your question in the fastest possible time. So I'd just like to say thank you ever so much to my co-host, Vesku, and also to Sharon and to our experts, Gary, Tom, and Luce. Thank you ever so much for joining and a safe trip home. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.